The clinking of champagne flutes at times, aperture times a restaurant, so exclusive it felt like a museum was the only sound. My family toasted my promotion to vice president. My mother Eleanor raised her glass, her smile as thin and sharp as the crystal stem. To Scarlett she announced, her voice projecting to the nearby tables. Who proves you can have a career when you don't have a family to distract you? A polite, tense laugh rippled through our table. Then the waiter placed the leather billfold on the table. Not in the middle. He slid it directly in front of me. I didn't react. I simply excused myself. The restaurant's restroom was a cavern of marble and silence. I didn't look in the mirror. I knew the mask of calm composure was perfectly in place. I leaned against the cold wall, my phone feeling like a weapon in my hand. It took 6 minutes. 6 minutes to log into the secure portal for the Carter Family Trust, the trust I had established and funded for the last decade. My thumb hovered over the button, the one labeled Times Revoke Successor Trustee *. My brother Michael's name was listed there. I pressed it. A second screen appeared, Times Appoint New Successor Trustee *. I typed in the name of my attorney. A final confirmation screen. *. Are you sure? This action is immediate and irreversible. *. My thumb didn't hesitate. I confirmed the change. By the time I had washed my hands, letting the cold water run over my wrists, a confirmation email had already arrived. It was time-stamped at 11:58 p.m. Subject Trust Administration Change Notification. The email was a legal formality, a sterile digital record of an execution. It was automatically forwarded to my mother, my father, and my brother. I walked back to the table, the quiet hum of the restaurant, a stark contrast to the silent detonation I had just triggered. My mother was examining the bill, a slight frown on her face. Scarlett, darling, this is quite a lot. She slid it toward me again, a gesture of finality. We're so proud. I met her gaze. Anger wasn't loud this time. It was clinical. Don't worry, I said, my voice even and low. Consider it my final investment. I placed my platinum credit card into the billfold without looking at the total. It didn't matter. It was the last invoice I would ever pay for them. They mistook my generosity for an obligation, my support for a utility. They were about to learn the difference between being on my payroll and being on my blacklist. The laughter from before felt like glass in my ears. They thought they had humiliated me. They were just beginning to understand the accounting. I rubbed my eyes, trying to summon regret, but there was only clarity. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a balance sheet finally being reconciled. For 15 years, I had been the silent sole investor in the failing enterprise known as my family. My compassion had been a resource they'd overdrafted for years. My love was a subscription service they enjoyed for free while complaining about the provider. It began with my brother Michael. His series of failed startups, a bespoke dog food delivery service, an artisanal ice cube company, a revolutionary app for cataloging socks, were all funded by seed rounds from my savings account. He called it venture capital. I now understood it was just welfare with a better public relations team. Each failure was followed by my mother's tearful call. He has the spirit of an entrepreneur, Scarlett. You have to support that. You're the stable one. My stability wasn't a virtue to them. It was a natural resource to be strip-mined. Then there was my sister Brittany. She didn't have business plans. She had lifestyle crises. There was the $1,000 a month yoga certification that she abandoned after 2 weeks. There was the move to a downtown loft she couldn't afford because her creative energy was being stifled in the suburbs. There was the emergency funding for a wellness retreat in Bali to recover from the trauma of her last breakup. Each expenditure was framed as a desperate need, an emotional emergency only I could solve. I wasn't a sister. I was a crisis management fund. My parents were the holding company for this dysfunction. My father, a man whose silence was his only notable contribution, had made a series of spectacularly bad investments in the late 2000s. I didn't just help with their mortgage. I paid it. They lived in a house my salary kept, drove cars my credit secured, and took vacations my bonuses funded. They called it family helping family. I now saw it for what it was, a hostile takeover of my life conducted so slowly and lovingly I hadn't even noticed. My success wasn't a source of pride for them. It was an expansion of their credit line. My promotion wasn't a celebration. It was an announcement of increased quarterly earnings they felt entitled to. The dinner tonight wasn't a tribute. It was an invoice. Handing me that bill for $312 was their fatal miscalculation. It wasn't the amount. It was the audacity. It was the final clarifying piece of data that proved this wasn't a family. It was a parasitic business model, and I was finally, officially dissolving the corporation. The first text arrived at 12:03 a.m., just as my car service pulled away from the restaurant. It was from Michael. Asterisk. What the hell is this legal email? Call me. Asterisk. I ignored it. By the time I reached my apartment, my phone was a vibrating brick of incoming notifications. 22 missed calls. 34 text messages. I placed it on the granite countertop, the buzzing a frantic distant noise. I poured a glass of water and decided to listen to a single voicemail. It was my mother. Her voice wasn't screaming, it was worse. It was laced with a tone of deep, wounded manipulation, the voice she used when she was cornering her prey. "Scarlet, darling," it began. The sound thick with manufactured sorrow. "I just saw this. This terrifying email. There must be a mistake. You've always been the stable one, the rock of this family." Michael is in the middle of a delicate negotiation for his new company. Brittany is finally getting her life on track. This would destroy them. This would destroy Times Us asterisk. After everything we've done for you? To be so selfish? You're not thinking clearly. You're just being cruel. I deleted the voicemail. The next was from Brittany. It was pure venom, asterisk. You think you're so much better than us, don't you? Sitting in your glass tower. You always resented that I had a life, that I had a daughter while you just had your pathetic career. You are a cold, empty bitch, and you are trying to ruin my life. Asterisk. Delete. The texts were a scrolling feed of their collective panic. They weren't shocked by what they had done. They were shocked I had stopped playing along. They weren't sorry for the insult. They were furious about the consequences. I watched their messages pour in a digital flood of entitlement and rage. Then I picked up my phone and sent a single reply to the family group chat. The same one they had used for years to coordinate their requests for my money. My message was 5 words, a calm, factual, lethal statement of my new reality. You seem to have confused my generosity with an obligation. I then put my phone on silent. The buzzing stopped. For the first time in years, my apartment was filled with a profound and beautiful silence. The war had begun, but the loudest battles I knew were still to come. 3 days of silence followed. It was the unnerving quiet of a storm gathering offshore. I went to work immersing myself in quarterly reports and logistics planning. My focus was a shield. The peace shattered on Thursday morning. It didn't come as a screaming phone call, but as a quiet professional notification in my inbox. The subject line was, "An article you were mentioned in." It was a notification from LinkedIn. My sister Brittany had written a post. It wasn't a rant. It was a work of art in corporate passive aggression. She had tagged my company and my CEO, Lauren Shaw. She used a professionally taken photo of our family from years ago, one where we all looked happy, successful, and normal. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulative prose. So incredibly heartbroken it began. To share a personal story about the dark side of corporate success. My sister Scarlett Carter, a vice president at Innovate Dynamics, is a brilliant woman. We were all so proud. But we've learned that sometimes the climb to the top requires you to sever the ropes for those holding you up from below. Due to a private family disagreement, Scarlett has chosen to leverage her considerable financial power to try and make her own family homeless, cutting off the trust that supports her parents and her sister, a single mother. We only ask for your thoughts and prayers as we navigate this shocking betrayal and hope that Innovate Dynamics fosters a culture that values family, not just bottom lines. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't just an attack. It was a professional assassination attempt. She had used all the right buzzwords: times, culture, values, single mother, betrayal, asterisk. She had painted me as a ruthless corporate monster who preyed on her own family. The comments were already rolling in. Sympathy from her network. Concerned questions from strangers. A few people I knew from the industry had liked it, likely out of confusion or a morbid curiosity. She had brought the war from my front door to my boardroom. My hands were shaking, but my mind was ice. I did not reply to the post. I did not call my sister. I did not break down. I took a screenshot of the post and all the comments. I drafted a calm, concise email to my CEO, Lauren Shaw, and the head of human resources. Subject, personal matter, and public defamation. Lauren Hay our team. A private family financial dispute has been intentionally escalated by my sister into the public and professional sphere. She has posted a defamatory and factually inaccurate story on LinkedIn tagging you and the company. I have attached a screenshot. I will not be engaging with this publicly, as that is the intended goal. My legal counsel will be handling all further communication on this matter. My focus remains entirely on my responsibilities here at Innovate Dynamics. Please let me know if you require any further information from me. Best Scarlett Carter. I hit send. Then I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. I need to engage a forensic accountant. I said, my voice steady. I need a full, comprehensive audit of the Carter Family Trust going back 10 years. I want to see where every single dollar has gone. This was no longer about humiliation. This was about survival. The forensic accountant, a man named Mr. Davies, with eyes that seemed to see only numbers, worked with chilling efficiency. He didn't care about the family drama. He cared about the data trails. For a week, he lived inside the digital architecture of the trust I had built, following every wire transfer, every withdrawal, every transaction. I expected him to find waste and mismanagement. I was prepared for a report detailing my brother's frivolous spending and my sister's lifestyle expenses. What he found was something far darker. I met him in a sterile conference room at his firm. He didn't offer coffee or pleasantries. He simply opened his laptop and projected a spreadsheet onto the wall. Miss Carter, he said, his voice flat, your family's spending habits are extravagant. But that's not the primary issue we've uncovered. He pointed to a series of wire transfers, each one for an amount just under $10,000, the federal reporting threshold. They were spread out over 5 years, totaling over $250,000. They were all sent from the trust's primary account to an offshore holding company. At first, I assumed these were authorized by you for some investment purpose. Mr. Davies continued, clicking to another screen. However, the digital authorizations for these transfers are forgeries. The screen showed a close-up of my digital signature, the one required to move funds. Next to it was another version. They looked identical to my eye. This is your authentic signature captured from the trust's founding documents, he said, indicating the first. And this, he pointed to the second, is a high-quality digital forgery. Sophisticated, but traceable. The IP address used for these authorizations doesn't belong to you. It traces back to a series of burner phones and public Wi-Fi hotspots, but the initial forgeries originated from a desktop computer at your brother Michael's registered business address. The air left my lungs. This wasn't just leeching. This wasn't my brother taking advantage of my generosity. This was calculated, methodical felony wire fraud. He hadn't just been spending my money. He had been stealing it systematically for years, using a sophisticated scheme to cover his tracks. $250,000, I whispered the number, feeling alien in my mouth. $254,612 to be precise, Mr. Davies corrected. The holding company is registered in the Cayman Islands. The beneficiary is Michael Carter. He's been laundering the money through it. I felt a cold, terrifying calm settle over me. The LinkedIn post. My mother's manipulative voicemails. It wasn't just the rage of entitled people having their allowance cut off. It was the blind panic of criminals who thought their scheme was about to be exposed. They hadn't just pushed me, they had given me the very weapon I needed to end this permanently. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a crime scene. And I had the evidence, the timeline, and the name of the perpetrator. The leverage was no longer financial. It was absolute. I didn't call the police. That would be messy and public. My retaliation needed to be as cold, private, and brutally efficient as their deception had been. I rented a conference room downtown for the following Tuesday at 9 a.m. It was a sterile glass box with a view of the city utterly devoid of warmth or personality. I sent a single calendar invitation to my mother, father, Michael, and Brittany. The subject was final accounting. The location was the address of the conference room. There was no other text. I knew they would come. Their greed and their fear would guarantee it. They arrived together, a united front of simmering resentment. My mother entered first, her face a mask of indignation. Brittany followed, eyes narrowed, and Michael shuffled in behind them, trying to look bored. My father, as always, was a silent shadow. They stopped short when they saw I wasn't alone. My attorney, a sharp, unsmiling woman named Miss Albright, sat to my right. "What is this, Scarlett?" my mother demanded. "Some kind of ambush." "Please have a seat," I said, my voice as neutral as the room's gray walls. I gestured to the large monitor at the end of the table. I clicked the first slide. It was the title page times Carter Family Trust, a 10-year financial review, asterisk. They exchanged confused glances. I clicked again. The next slide was a simple flowchart showing the funds I had deposited into the trust over the last decade, a number well into 7 figures. Then I moved to the next slide. It was a detailed breakdown of their expenses. Brittany's wellness retreats, Michael's seed, funding my parents' mortgage payments. Their faces tightened. "And now," I said, my voice dropping slightly, "we come to the unauthorized expenditures." I clicked to the next slide. It showed the first forged wire transfer. The date. The amount, $9,000. The destination, an anonymous holding company. I clicked again. Another transfer. And another. And another. I filled the screen with a scrolling list of transactions, a digital waterfall of Michael's theft. Michael went pale. This is bullshit," he stammered. "Those are business investments." "Are they?" I replied calmly. I clicked to the final slide. It was Mr. Davies' signed affidavit from the forensic accounting report. I had highlighted a single sentence in red times. The evidence indicates a consistent and deliberate pattern of digital signature forgery and wire fraud, constituting multiple federal felonies. Asterisk, silence. The word times felonies times hung in the air like poison. My mother stared at the screen, then at Michael, her face a canvas of dawning horror. Brittany looked from my face to her brother's confusion, warring with fear. My father finally looked up from the table, his eyes wide. "You have 2 options," I said, folding my hands on the table. Miss Albright slid a single thick document to the center of the table. "Option 1, you sign this. It is an irrevocable non-disclosure and non-contact agreement. It legally prohibits any of you from ever contacting me, speaking about me, or writing about me publicly or privately for the rest of your lives. It cedes any and all future claims to my estate or assets. You will walk out of this room and I will cease to exist for you and you for me. In return, this financial review," I gestured to the screen, "remains on this laptop and goes no further." I paused, letting the weight of it settle. Option 2, you refuse to sign. Miss Albright will then forward this entire presentation along with the accountant's full report to the United States Attorney's Office. Given the amount and the interstate wire transfers, Michael will be facing a sentence of up to 20 years in federal prison. My mother finally broke. "Scarlett, you wouldn't," she whispered, her voice cracking. "He's your brother." I looked directly at her, my expression unwavering. "You handed me the bill for a dinner celebrating my success. Michael stole $250,000 from me. Do not lecture me on family." I stood up. "You have 5 minutes to decide." The silence that followed was absolute. The blustering anger was gone, replaced by the cold, stark reality of their position. I watched them not as a daughter or a sister, but as an analyst observing a hostile board during a forced acquisition. Michael was sweating, his eyes darting between the document on the table and my face. My mother was whispering frantically to him, her matriarchal authority completely shattered. For the first time, she had no leverage, no emotional guilt she could deploy. Brittany stared at the document as if it were a snake, her professional sabotage on LinkedIn now, looking like a childish prank in the face of federal prison time. My father, the silent partner in their lifelong campaign of emotional extortion, was the first to break. He picked up the pen with a trembling hand, his face ashen. He signed his name without looking at anyone. One by one, they followed. My mother's signature was a spidery, angry scrawl. Brittany signed quickly, snatching her hand back as if the paper were hot. Michael was the last. His hand shook so badly he could barely write his own name. When he was done, he threw the pen down on the table. It was over. Miss Albright gathered the documents, placing them neatly into her briefcase. "You will receive a notarized copy for your records," she said to the room at large. "A reminder, any violation of the agreement, including a single text message, will result in immediate legal action." They shuffled out of the room like ghosts, not speaking, not looking at me. The boardroom door clicked shut behind them, the sound echoing with profound finality. I stood at the window, looking down at the city below. The cars moved like blood cells through the arteries of the streets. The world was still moving oblivious. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel sadness. I felt zeroed out. The balance sheet of my life, which had for so long carried their toxic debt, was finally clear. The accounts were settled, the books were closed. My new life began in that quiet, empty conference room. It was a life built not on obligation, but on choice. A life where my stability was my strength, not their resource. A life where my peace was not a commodity to be negotiated. As I walked out into the bright afternoon, I felt the weight of their world lift from my shoulders. The price of my freedom had been high, but the cost of staying had been my entire self. This wasn't a victory. It was an emancipation. Before you go, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice to protect your own peace? Your stories give us all strength. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content about taking back your power.